Admiral Zsi had been flying through space for almost 200 years. She had met 17 different alien races during that time. Each meeting had taught her something new about the galaxy. Some aliens were tall and thin. Others were short and round. Some had 4 arms. Others had tentacles instead of legs. But all of them followed the same basic rules when they built their ships. Their ships were smooth and curved. They looked like art pieces floating in space. The weapons were hidden inside the hull. Everything was designed to look peaceful and beautiful. This was how civilized beings built their ships. This was how things had always been done. Today was different. The human ship hung in space like a giant metal beast. It was nothing like any ship Zextai had ever seen. Where her own ship had flowing lines and gentle curves, the human ship was all sharp angles and hard edges. It looked like someone had taken a mountain and carved it into the shape of a weapon. The ship was massive. It was 3 times bigger than her own flagship, which was already one of the largest ships in the Valoran fleet. But size was not what made her nervous. What made her nervous were the weapons. The human ship did not try to hide its weapons. They were everywhere. Gun ports covered the hull like scales on a fish. Missile tubes stuck out from the sides like spines. Energy weapons were mounted on towers that could turn in any direction. The ship looked like it was built for one purpose only, to destroy things. Admiral said Ship, her tactical officer. Ship was a Kalari with long, thin arms and big, round eyes. Right now, those eyes were wide with fear. The sensor readings are strange. Strange how? Zexi asked. The energy output from that ship is impossible. Our computers say it has enough power to destroy a small moon, but that cannot be right. No one builds ships like that. Zexi looked at the readings herself. The numbers did not make sense. The human ship was putting out more energy than her entire fleet combined, and it was just sitting there doing nothing. If it actually used all that power for weapons, maybe the sensors are broken, suggested Veltar, her science officer. Run the scan again, Zexi ordered. They ran the scan 3 times. The numbers were the same each time. The human ship really did have that much power. It really was that dangerous. A message came through on the communication system. The voice was strange. It did not have the musical quality of Valoran speech or the clicking sounds that Kalari made. It was flat and direct. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earth ship Righteous Fury. We received your signal. We come in peace, but we are prepared for war. The bridge went quiet. No one had ever heard a greeting like that before. When civilized beings met each other, they talked about trade and friendship and cultural exchange. They did not mention war in the first sentence. What do we say back? Asked Ship toward Zexi thought about it. The standard first contact protocol was to invite the new species to a meeting on neutral ground. Usually, this happened at Nexus Station, which was built just for this purpose. But the human ship looked like it could turn Nexus Station into space dust without even trying. We follow protocol, she decided, but we do it very carefully. She opened a channel back to the human ship. Captain Chen, this is Admiral Zixathi of the Valorian Confederacy. Welcome to our space. We would like to invite you to a formal meeting at Nexus Station. This is how we normally handle first contact with new species. There was a long pause. Then the human voice came back. We accept your invitation, Admiral. We will send 1 representative to your station. Our ship will remain here. 1 representative. Zexathi was surprised. Most species sent large groups to first contact meetings. They brought scientists and diplomats and cultural experts. Are you sure 1 person is enough? 1 person is how we do it, Captain Chen replied. It is our way. After the communication ended, Zexathi called a meeting with her senior officers. They gathered in the conference room and stared at the tactical display showing the human ship. What do we know about them? She asked. Veltar pulled up the information they had gathered. They call themselves humans. They come from a planet called Earth. It is about 40 light-years from here. Their planet is unusual. Unusual how? It has extreme weather. Parts of it are covered in ice. Other parts are so hot that water boils. There are violent storms that can destroy cities. The ground shakes and splits open. Mountains explode and throw rock into the sky. The planet seems to be trying to kill everything that lives on it. Zexi frowned. Most civilized species came from gentle planets with stable climates. worlds where life could develop in peace. How do they survive on a planet like that? That is not the strange part, Veltar continued. The strange part is their history. According to their transmissions, they have been at war for their entire existence as a species. Not just small wars, big wars. Wars that killed millions of people. Wars that destroyed entire continents. But they survived, Shipt pointed out. They more than survived. They thrived. Every time their planet tried to kill them, they got stronger. Every time they fought a war, they got better at fighting. They have been doing this for thousands of years. Zexi looked at the image of the human ship again. Suddenly it made sense. A species that had been fighting for survival for thousands of years would naturally build ships like that. They would not think about making things beautiful. They would only think about making things deadly. Admiral said, her communications officer. We are getting reports from other ships in the area. Everyone wants to know about the human vessel. What are they saying? Most of them are scared. Captain Taver of the science ship Rainbow wants to know if we should call for backup. Commander Kell thinks we should retreat to a safe distance. Zethai could understand their fear. The human ship looked like something from a nightmare. But she was curious too. In 200 years of space travel, she had never met anyone like this. We continue with the meeting, she decided, but we take precautions. Move the fleet to a safe distance. Have them ready to run if things go wrong, and send a message to Confederacy Command. They need to know about this. 3 hours later, Zethai was on her way to Nexus Station. The station was a beautiful structure, made of crystal and metal. It had been built by 12 different species. Working together, each race had contributed their best technology and art. The result was something that looked like a jewel floating in space. As her shuttle approached the docking bay, Zexthi could see other ships arriving. Representatives from the major Confederacy worlds were coming to witness this historic meeting. The Kari had sent their best diplomat. The Theon Empire had sent a cultural expert. Even the mysterious Voidwalkers had sent someone. Everyone wanted to see the humans. Zeth docked her shuttle and made her way to the main conference room. It was a large circular space with seats arranged in a pattern that showed equality. No one sat higher than anyone else. No one was given a position of dominance. This was how civilized beings conducted meetings. She was early, but she was not the first to arrive. Several other delegates were already there, talking quietly among themselves. The conversation stopped when she walked in. Admiral, said Ambassador Cattell of the Kari, have you seen their ship up close? I have, and it is unlike anything we have encountered before. The weapons readings are disturbing, added Science Director Thor of the Theon Empire. My people have been analyzing the sensor data. That ship could destroy our entire fleet without taking damage. Perhaps they are not as peaceful as they claim, suggested Delegate Morgoth of the Voidwalkers. Zechtai was about to respond when the doors opened. A single figure walked into the room. The human was smaller than Zechtai had expected. Most of the delegates in the room were at least 7 feet tall. The human was only about 6 feet. She had dark skin and black hair that was cut short. She wore a simple uniform that looked more like work clothes than formal diplomatic wear. But there was something in the way she moved that made everyone pay attention. She walked like a predator. Not an angry predator, but one that was always ready to act. Her eyes swept the room, taking in every detail. When she looked at someone, it felt like she was measuring them for weaknesses. I am Captain Sarah Chen, she said. Her voice was calm and steady. I represent humanity. She took the only empty seat, which happened to be directly across from Zechtai. The circular arrangement suddenly felt different. Instead of a group of equals, it felt like everyone else on one side and the human on the other. Captain Chen, Zeshi began, welcome to Nexus Station. We are honored to meet a representative of your species. Perhaps you could tell us about your people. Captain Chen nodded. What would you like to know? Your ship is impressive. We have never seen weapons technology like that before. What threats did your people face that required such powerful defenses? The human was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice was matter-of-fact, like she was discussing the weather. In the last 500 years, my species has faced extinction 17 times. Asteroid impacts that blocked out the sun for years. Volcanic eruptions that poisoned the air. Ice ages that froze most of the planet. diseases that killed half our population, and wars. Many, many wars. The room was completely silent. Each time we survived by becoming stronger, we learned to build better shelters. We learned to grow food in harsh conditions. We learned to heal diseases, and we learned to defend ourselves. But surely, said Ambassador Cattell, once you developed space travel, the threats decreased. Captain Chen shook her head. Space has its own dangers. We have fought wars among the stars. We have faced alien invasions. We have seen entire colonies wiped out by cosmic disasters. The universe is not a safe place. The Confederacy has maintained peace for 400 years, said Science Director. We have found that most conflicts can be resolved through diplomacy and mutual understanding. That works when everyone wants peace, Captain Chen replied. But not everyone does. There are species in this galaxy that see peace as weakness. They see diplomacy as an opportunity to get closer before they attack. We have never encountered such species, Zextai said. You will. The certainty in the human's voice was disturbing. She was not making a threat. She was making a prediction. Captain, said Delegate Morgoth, your ship appears to be designed purely for warfare. Do your people have no interest in peaceful exploration? We are explorers, Captain Chen said. But we are prepared for what we might find. Hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. This is how we have survived. The meeting continued for 2 more hours. The delegates asked many questions about human culture, technology, and intentions. Captain Chen answered them all honestly and directly. She never tried to make her people sound more peaceful than they were. She never apologized for their military strength. When the meeting ended, Zexathy walked Captain Chen to her shuttle. Your people seem very prepared, she said. We have to be, Captain Chen replied. Admiral, can I ask you something? Of course. In 400 years of peace, have you ever wondered what would happen if something came along that could not be reasoned with? Something that saw your peaceful nature as an invitation to attack? Zexy thought about it. We have protocols for such situations. I hope they work, Captain Chen said. I really do. But if they do not, remember that humanity is here. We understand threats that civilized species prefer not to think about. As Captain Chen's shuttle flew back toward the massive human warship, Zhe Si stood at the observation window and watched it go. She had a feeling that the galaxy was about to change in ways no one could predict. The age of peace had lasted 400 years. She wondered if it was about to end. Captain Sarah Chen stood in the observation deck of the UA's Righteous Fury, looking out at the collection of alien ships floating nearby. They were beautiful in their own way. Each one was different, but they all shared the same basic design philosophy. Smooth curves, hidden weapons, elegant lines that spoke of artistic sensibility rather than military function. She had spent the last 3 months studying the histories of the species that built those ships. The Valorans had achieved spaceflight 800 years ago. In all that time, they had fought exactly 3 wars, and each one had lasted less than a year. The Kari had never fought a war at all. They solved all their disputes through negotiation and compromise. The Theon Empire was the closest thing to a military power in this region of space. But even they had not fought a serious conflict in over 2 centuries. Their empire was really just a collection of worlds that had agreed to work together for mutual benefit. Their warships were designed more for show than for actual combat. Penny, for your thoughts, Captain? Asked Commander James Rodriguez, her executive officer. Chen turned away from the window. Rodriguez was a tall man with graying hair and scars on his hands from his early days in the engineering corps. Like Chen, he had served in the border wars against the Centauri separatists. Like Chen, he understood what real war looked like. I was thinking about how different we are from them, she said. Different how? Chen gestured toward the alien ships. Look at them, James. They are works of art. Beautiful, elegant, sophisticated. Then look at us. The Righteous Fury was none of those things. It was a massive block of armor and weapons, built for one purpose, to destroy enemies of humanity. Its hull was covered with sensor arrays, weapon mounts, and defensive systems. It looked like what it was, a tool for war. We are what we had to become, Rodriguez said. I know, but I wonder if they understand that. During the diplomatic meeting on Nexus Station, Chen had watched the alien delegates carefully. Their body language, their facial expressions, the way they reacted to her words. Most of them had been frightened by what she told them about human history. A few had been disgusted. They could not understand how a species could fight so much and still consider itself civilized. "Captain," said Lieutenant Kim from the communication station, "we are receiving another invitation from Admiral Zuthi. She wants to arrange a cultural exchange program." Chen was not surprised. The Valorans were trying to understand humanity by studying their culture. It was the way civilized species always approached problems, through knowledge and understanding. Chen approved of the approach even though she knew it would not give them the answers they were looking for. "Tell the Admiral I accept," Chen said. "Arrange for a small team to visit their flagship and invite a group of their people to tour our ship." Rodriguez raised an eyebrow. "Are you sure about that, Captain? Our ship is not exactly designed for tourists." "That is exactly why they need to see it," Chen replied. 2 days later, Chen found herself aboard the Valoran flagship, Harmony of Stars. The ship was even more beautiful on the inside than it had been from the outside. The corridors were wide and filled with natural light. Living plants grew from the walls, creating the feeling of walking through a garden rather than a spacecraft. The crew quarters were spacious and comfortable. Each person had their own room, with large windows looking out into space. There were common areas for socializing, meditation rooms for quiet reflection, and recreation facilities that included what looked like a small park, complete with trees and a stream. Admiral Zexi personally conducted the tour. She was clearly proud of her ship and eager to show off its advanced features. "The bioneural computers that run our systems are grown rather than built," she explained as they walked through the main computer core. "They are based on the brain structure of the Valoran people, but enhanced for processing speed and memory capacity." Chen examined the organic-looking structures that lined the walls. They pulsed gently with soft light, almost like they were breathing. "How do you handle damage to the system?" "The bioneural networks can heal themselves given time," Zexathi said. "Small damage repairs itself within hours. Major damage takes longer, but the system is very resilient." "What about combat damage?" Zexati looked confused. "Combat damage when the ship is being shot at. How do you keep the computers working when they are taking battle damage?" We do not usually fight while our ships are being damaged," Zexati said slowly. "Our weapons have very long range. We engage enemies from a safe distance." Chen nodded, but she was thinking about all the times human ships had to keep fighting while taking heavy damage. About computers that had to work even when half the ship was on fire. About crew members who had to do their jobs while hull breaches were sucking the air out of nearby compartments. The tour continued through the ship's medical facilities, which were impressive by any standard. The Valorans had advanced healing technology that could repair almost any injury. Their medical bays looked more like spas than hospitals. "We have not had a combat casualty in over 50 years, Zextai said proudly. "Most of our medical work involves treating accidents and age-related conditions." "That is fortunate," Chen said. "Your people must have very different medical needs," Zexi observed. "From what you told us about your history, you must see many injuries." Chen thought about the trauma centers on human ships, about surgeons who could operate while the ship was under fire, about medical supplies designed to treat battlefield wounds in zero gravity, about the psychological counselors who helped soldiers deal with the things they had seen in combat. "We have learned to treat many different types of injuries," she said simply. The weapon systems were the most interesting part of the tour for Chen. The Valoran ship had impressive energy weapons and defensive shields, but everything was designed for long-range engagement against a single opponent. The idea of fighting multiple enemies at close range seemed to be completely foreign to them. "Our primary weapon is the coherent energy projector," Zexi explained, showing Chen a sleek device that emerged from the ship's hull. "It can destroy most targets with a single shot at ranges up to 50,000 kilometers. What if the enemy gets closer than that? Why would they? At close range, both ships would be destroyed." Chen could see the logic, but it was the logic of people who had never faced desperate enemies, willing to sacrifice themselves for victory. The Valorans could not imagine someone ramming their ship, or using suicide tactics, or fighting when they were clearly outmatched. When the tour ended, Chen thanked Admiral Zexty for her hospitality. "Your ship is remarkable," she said. "Your people have achieved something beautiful here." "Thank you," Zexy replied. "I hope your people will visit our ship again soon, and I look forward to seeing your vessel tomorrow." The next day, Admiral Zexathy and 5 of her officers arrived at the Righteous Fury for their tour. Chen met them at the airlock, noting how they reacted to their first glimpse of the human ship's interior, where the Valoran ship had been open and garden-like. The Righteous Fury was enclosed and functional. The corridors were narrow and lined with pipes, conduits, and access panels. Everything was designed to be easily repaired or replaced during combat. There were no windows in most areas. The hull was too thick and too armored to allow for such luxuries. "This is our main corridor," Chen explained as they walked through the ship. "It connects all the major systems and provides alternate routes if any section is damaged." "Damaged how?" asked Science Officer. "Enemy fire mostly. Sometimes explosive decompression, system failures, fires, or structural collapse." The Valoran officers exchanged glances. They were not used to thinking about such things. The crew quarters were small and efficient. Each person had a bunk, a small storage area, and access to shared facilities. There were no windows, no decorations, no luxury items. "Where do your people go to relax?" asked Admiral Zay-Thai. "The recreation deck," Chen said, leading them to a large room filled with exercise equipment, games, and entertainment systems. Most crew members spend their off-duty time here. The recreation deck was functional rather than beautiful. The equipment was designed to help people stay in fighting shape. The games were strategy-based, often involving military scenarios. Even the entertainment was focused on training and education. "Your people seem very disciplined," observed Tactical Officer Shipped. "We have to be," Chen replied. "In combat, discipline keeps you alive." The real shock came when they visited the medical bay. Unlike the spa-like healing centers on Valoran ships, the human medical facility looked like what it was: a place designed to treat severe trauma under difficult conditions. "This is our main surgical suite," Chen explained, showing them a room filled with advanced but intimidating-looking equipment. It is designed to operate even during combat conditions. The entire room can be sealed and pressurized independently of the rest of the ship. "Why would you need to perform surgery during combat?" asked Medical Officer Thindal. "Because people get hurt during fights," Chen said matter-of-factly. "And sometimes you cannot wait for the fighting to stop before you treat them." The Valoran medical officer looked disturbed. "What kinds of injuries do you treat?" Chen thought about how to explain it gently. "Energy weapon burns, projectile wounds, crush injuries from explosive decompression, radiation poisoning, blast trauma, psychological shock." She stopped when she saw the expressions on their faces. They looked sick. The weapons tour was even more difficult for the visitors. The Righteous Fury carried weapon systems that the Valorans could barely comprehend. Plasma cannons that could melt through the heaviest armor. Missile systems that could track and destroy multiple targets simultaneously. Point defense systems designed to shoot down incoming projectiles at impossible speeds. "This is our main gun," Chen said, showing them the massive plasma cannon that ran through the center of the ship. It can penetrate most known armor types and has an effective range of over 100,000 kilometers. 100,000? Admiral Zeth was amazed. "Our weapons have half that range." "Long range is important," Chen agreed. "But sometimes you have to fight up close." She showed them the close-range weapon systems: rapid-fire energy weapons for fighting small, fast targets, missile pods for area denial, beam weapons for precision strikes. The ship carried enough firepower to fight an entire fleet. "How many enemies do you expect to face?" asked Tactical Officer Shipped. "As many as necessary," Chen replied. The tour ended at the bridge, which was the most revealing part of the ship. Where Valorian bridges were open and comfortable, the human bridge was cramped and efficient. Every station was designed for maximum effectiveness during crisis situations. Multiple backup systems ensured that the ship could continue fighting, even if primary systems were destroyed. "Your people have thought of everything," Admiral Zuthi said quietly. "We have had to," Chen replied. "Admiral, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "In 400 years of peace, what have you learned about war?" Zexthi was quiet for a moment. "We have learned that it is unnecessary, that problems can be solved through communication and compromise. That is true most of the time, Chen agreed. But what happens when you meet someone who does not want to communicate? Someone who sees your peaceful nature as weakness? Someone who interprets your offers of compromise as surrender? We would find a way to reason with them. Chen nodded, but her expression was sad. I hope you never have to find out how wrong that assumption might be. As the Valoran delegation prepared to return to their ship, Admiral Zeth pulled Chen aside. Captain, may I speak freely? Always. Your ship terrifies my people. Your weapons, your tactics, your entire approach to existence. It is so different from everything we know. Some of my officers think you are dangerous. Chen considered this. We are dangerous, Admiral. That is the point. We are dangerous to those who would harm innocent people. We are dangerous to those who mistake kindness for weakness. We are dangerous to those who think that peace means the absence of strength. But you say you come in peace. We do. But peace is not the natural state of the universe, Admiral. Peace is something you have to be strong enough to maintain. For 400 years you have been lucky. The threats you faced could be reasoned with. But that luck will not last forever. Admiral Zexathi was quiet as she absorbed this information. When that day comes, Chen continued, you will need allies who understand what you are facing. Allies who know how to respond to unreasonable threats. Allies who can do the things that civilized people prefer not to think about. And you would be those allies if you wanted us to be. After the Valoran delegation left, Commander Rodriguez joined Chen on the observation deck. How do you think it went? He asked. Chen watched the Valoran ships in the distance. They are good people, James. They have built something beautiful and peaceful and worth protecting, but they do not understand how fragile it really is. Do you think they will learn? They will have to, Chen said, because whether they realize it or not, the galaxy is about to become a much more dangerous place. 3 months had passed since the first meeting between humanity and the Valoran Confederacy. The cultural exchange program was going well, though not always smoothly. Valorian scientists were fascinated by human technology, even if they found it somewhat brutal in design. Human diplomats were learning about the complex web of treaties and agreements that held the Confederacy together. Captain Sarah Chen had spent most of those 3 months docked at Nexus Station, attending endless meetings about trade agreements, territorial boundaries, and cultural protocols. It was important work, but not the kind of work she was trained for. Chen was a soldier, not a diplomat. She was reviewing reports in her quarters when the emergency signal came through. Captain, to the bridge immediately, came the voice of Commander Rodriguez over the ship's communication system. The tone told Chen everything she needed to know. This was not a drill. Chen reached the bridge in less than 2 minutes. The main display showed a tactical overview of local space, with red markers indicating unknown contacts. Report, she ordered. Captain, we are receiving multiple distress calls from the Outer Rim, said Lieutenant Kim from the communication station. At least 6 colonies are under attack. Attacked by who? Unknown, ma'am. The attackers are not responding to any communications. They appear to be consuming the colonies. Chen frowned. Consuming? Rodriguez pulled up the sensor data. Captain, take a look at this. The display showed the remains of what had once been a thriving colony world. Where there should have been cities and farms, there was nothing but bare rock. The atmosphere had been stripped away. Even the oceans were gone. How is that possible? Chen asked. We do not know, said Science Officer Park. But it happened fast. The colony had over 2 million inhabitants. The last transmission was 18 hours ago. Now there is nothing left. Chen studied the data. She had seen many types of warfare in her career, but nothing like this. This was not conquest or occupation. This was total consumption. Are there any survivors? Negative, Captain. Nothing larger than bacteria appears to have survived. Before Chen could respond, another alert sounded. Admiral Zextai was requesting. Immediate communication. Put her through, Chen ordered. The Admiral's image appeared on the main screen, even allowing for the differences between human and Valoran facial expressions. She looked terrified. Captain Chen, she said without preamble, we need your help. What is the situation, Admiral? We are facing an enemy we have never encountered before. They call themselves the Veltar Swarm. We tried to establish communication, but they consumed our diplomatic vessel. Chen felt a cold sensation in her stomach. She had hoped never to hear those words applied to a real situation. How many ships do they have? Our scouts report over 1,000 vessels. They are biological in nature, grown rather than built. Each one appears to be designed for consumption and reproduction. Where are they now? They have consumed 3 outer colonies completely. They are moving toward the core worlds. At their current rate of advance, they will reach Valoran Prime. In 72 hours, Chen looked at the tactical display. The situation was exactly what she had been afraid of. An enemy that could not be reasoned with. An enemy that saw peaceful civilizations as nothing more than food. "What is your fleet doing?" she asked. Admiral Zek's Thai's expression became even more distressed. "We have deployed our entire defensive fleet, 200 ships, including our most advanced battle cruisers. They are not enough." The Admiral transmitted the battle reports. Chen read them quickly, her expression growing darker with each line. The Valoran fleet had engaged the Veltar swarm with their standard long-range tactics. It had been a disaster. The Veltar ships absorbed energy weapon fire without significant damage. When Valoran ships tried to maintain distance, the biological vessels simply swarmed them, using sheer numbers to overwhelm defenses. The elegant Valoran warships, designed for civilized warfare against similar opponents, were completely outmatched. Admiral Chen said carefully, "What exactly are you asking me to do?" "Help us," Zexi said simply. "Your ship, your weapons, they might make a difference." Chen was quiet for a long moment. She understood what the Admiral was really asking. She was asking humanity to reveal its true nature to the galaxy, to show what human weapons could really do, to demonstrate the kind of warfare that civilized species preferred not to think about. "Admiral, I need you to understand something. If we intervene, if we show the galaxy what human ships are actually capable of, there is no going back. Everything changes. Captain, they are going to consume entire worlds, billions of lives. It is not politics I am worried about," Chen interrupted. "It is whether you will still be able to look at us as allies once you see what we really are." Admiral Zex Tai was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice was steady despite her fear. "Captain, my people are about to be exterminated. I will accept any help you can give, regardless of the consequences." Chen nodded slowly. "Very well. We will engage the enemy. But Admiral, I want you to understand what you are about to see. Human warfare is not like yours. We do not fight to disable or discourage. We fight to eliminate threats completely. I understand. Do you, Admiral? When this is over, when your people are safe, remember that you asked for this. Remember that sometimes survival requires things that civilized people find disturbing." Chen cut the communication and turned to her crew. Every person on the bridge was looking at her, waiting for orders. "Mr. Rodriguez, take us to battle stations. All hands. This is the captain. We are about to engage a hostile force that threatens civilian populations. This is what we trained for. This is why we are here." The righteous fury transformed as the crew prepared for combat. Weapon systems that had been powered down came online. Armor plating shifted to protect critical systems. The ship's bioneural network switched to combat mode, increasing processing speed and reaction time. Captain said, "Navigator Walsh, course to the combat zone laid in. Take us there maximum speed." The journey to the outer rim took 6 hours. During that time, Chen received constant updates from the battle zone. The Veltar swarm was continuing its advance, despite the best efforts of the Valoran fleet. 3 more colonies had been consumed. The biological ships seemed to be growing stronger with each world they devoured. Captain said intelligence. "Officer Martinez, I have been analyzing the vessels. They appear to be living creatures, bred specifically for warfare and consumption. Each ship is essentially a giant organism with weapons and propulsion systems integrated into its biology. Weaknesses hard to determine without direct engagement, but biological systems usually have vulnerabilities that mechanical systems do not. They need specific nutrients. They can be poisoned. They have to maintain homeostasis." Chen nodded. Human beings had fought biological weapons before, not often, and never on this scale, but the principles were the same. "Mr. Park, I want you to analyze everything we know about biological warfare. Look for vulnerabilities we can exploit." "Yes, ma'am." As they approached the combat zone, Long-range sensors began picking up the battle. The Valoran fleet was fighting desperately, but they were clearly losing. Their beautiful ships were being torn apart by biological vessels that fought like wild animals. Captain said, "Lieutenant Kim, Admiral Zexathi is requesting communication. Put her through." The Admiral appeared on screen again. This time she was clearly on the bridge of her flagship during combat. Alarms were sounding in the background, and Chen could see damage reports scrolling across displays. "Captain Chen, thank the stars you are here. We have lost 40 ships. The enemy is Heltals. They are not like anything we have ever faced. I can see that, Admiral. I want you to pull your fleet back to minimum safe distance." "Pull back, but the colonies are already lost," Chen said bluntly. "Admiral, your ships are not designed for this kind of fight. You will only get in our way." Zexathi looked like she wanted to argue, but another explosion somewhere on her ship reminded her of the reality of the situation. "Very well, Fleet Command. All ships withdraw to coordinates 77 Alpha," Admiral Chen said. "What you are about to see, try to remember that we are the same people you have been working with for the past 3 months. We have not changed. You are just seeing a different side of us." As the Valoran fleet pulled back, the righteous fury moved forward into the combat zone. Chen could see the Veltar swarm clearly now. Over 1,000 biological vessels, each one the size of a city block, swarming through space like insects. They moved in complex patterns that spoke of hive intelligence rather than individual thought. "My God," whispered Navigator Walsh. "There are so many of them." "Tactical," Chen ordered. "Give me a full analysis." "Captain, the enemy vessels appear to be organic constructs with integrated weapon systems. They are using some kind of bioplasma projectors and what looks like acid-based projectile weapons. Their hulls seem to be self-repairing. Numbers 1,237 individual contacts. They are spread across a volume of approximately 50 million cubic kilometers. Chen studied the tactical display. This was exactly the kind of fight that human ships were designed for. Multiple enemies, close-range combat, enemies that would not surrender or retreat. All departments report readiness. Weapons ready, shields ready, engineering ready, medical ready. Chen took a deep breath. Once she gave the next order, there would be no hiding what humanity really was. "Tactical. You may fire when ready." "Ma'am, which targets should we prioritize?" Chen looked at the swarm of biological ships. They were spread out, trying to surround the human vessel like predators encircling prey. They had no idea what they were dealing with. "All of them," she said simply. The first salvo from the righteous fury was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Plasma cannons designed to crack the armor of human dreadnoughts tore through biological holes like they were made of paper. Missile systems that could track and destroy multiple targets simultaneously turned dozens of Veltar vessels into expanding clouds of organic debris. In the first 30 seconds of combat, the human ship destroyed over 50 enemy vessels. The Veltar swarm reacted like a living organism, flowing toward the new threat with single-minded determination. Hundreds of bioships converged on the righteous fury, their weapons firing streams of corrosive plasma and acid projectiles. The human ship's shields absorbed the attack without significant strain. "Tactical. Continue firing. Target the largest concentrations." "Yes, ma'am." The battle that followed was less a fight than a demonstration. The Veltar ships had evolved to face enemies that thought like civilized beings. Enemies that would try to minimize damage, that would retreat when faced with overwhelming odds, that would look for diplomatic solutions even in the middle of combat. The humans did none of these things. They fought with a cold, methodical efficiency that spoke of thousands of years of evolutionary pressure. Each weapon was used at maximum effectiveness. Each target was destroyed completely before moving to the next. There was no wasted motion, no hesitation, no mercy. "Captain," reported Tactical Officer Stevens, "enemy forces are attempting to disengage." "Negative," Chen replied without hesitation. "They came here to consume entire worlds. We eliminate the threat completely." "Ma'am, you heard me, Mr. Stevens. No survivors." The final phase of the battle lasted another hour. The righteous fury hunted down fleeing Veltar vessels with the same methodical efficiency it had shown. During the main engagement, human sensors tracked biological ships, trying to hide in asteroid fields. Human weapons reached out across impossible distances to destroy enemies attempting to escape. When it was over, the Veltar swarm had ceased to exist. Admiral Thai's voice came over the communication system, barely a whisper. "Captain Chen, what have you done?" Chen looked at the tactical display, now showing nothing but debris, where once there had been over 1,000 enemy ships. "What was necessary, Admiral? What was necessary?" The silence that followed the destruction of the Veltar swarm was unlike anything Admiral Zethi had ever experienced. In 200 years of space travel, she had grown used to the constant background noise of space, the hum of engines, the chatter of communications, the beeping of sensors. Now, there was nothing but the sound of her own breathing and the shocked whispers of her bridge crew. On the main display, where moments ago there had been over 1,000 enemy vessels, there was now only debris. Expanding clouds of organic matter drifted through space, like the remains of some impossible explosion. The largest pieces were no bigger than a shuttlecraft. "Tactical," she said quietly. "Confirm enemy status." Her tactical officer shipped, checked his sensors 3 times before responding. "Admiral, I am reading no active enemy vessels, no life signs, no energy signatures. The entire Veltar swarm has been eliminated." Eliminated? Such a clinical word for what they had just witnessed. Zeksethi had watched the human ship tear through the biological fleet like a force of nature. There had been no hesitation, no mercy, no attempt to disable or capture, only systematic, efficient destruction. "Time from first engagement to complete elimination?" she asked. 47 minutes, Admiral. 47 minutes. The same enemy force that had destroyed half the Valoran fleet in 6 hours had been completely wiped out by a single human ship in less than an hour. Admiral said, her communications officer, "Captain Chen is requesting to speak with you." Z's thigh straightened in her command chair. She was not sure what to say to the human captain. "Thank you for saving us. Why did you kill them all? What kind of monsters are you?" "Put her through." Captain Chen appeared on the main screen. She looked exactly the same as she had before the battle. Calm, professional, slightly tired. There was no sign that she had just committed what might be the largest act of genocide in galactic history. Admiral Chen said, "The threat has been neutralized. Your colonies are safe." "Captain, I thank you. My people owe you a debt that can never be repaid." Chen nodded acknowledgement, but her expression was unreadable. "Admiral, I need to ask you something important. Are there any other Veltar forces in this region of space? Other forces, breeding colonies, supply bases, scout ships. The group we just fought was a swarm, which means there might be other swarms. We need to make sure this threat is completely eliminated." The clinical way Chen discussed the possibility of hunting down and destroying even more biological ships made Zeshi feel cold. But the captain was right. If there were other Veltar forces out there, they would have to be dealt with. "Our long-range sensors have detected no other concentrations of vessels," she reported. "But our sensor range is limited compared to yours. We will conduct a sweep of the surrounding systems," Chen said. "If there are any other Veltar forces within 50 light-years, we will find them." And then Chen's expression did not change. "And then we will eliminate them." After the communication ended, Zeksethi called a meeting with her senior officers. They gathered in the conference room, but no one seemed to know what to say. "Comments?" she finally asked. Science Officer Veltar spoke first. "Admiral, I have been analyzing the sensor readings from the battle. The human weapons are beyond anything in our database. Their plasma cannons generate temperatures approaching the core of a star. Their missile systems can track and engage over 200 separate targets simultaneously, and their point defense grid shot down incoming projectiles that our sensors could barely detect. Their tactics were equally impressive," added Tactical Officer Shipped. "They identified the optimal firing solutions for maximum damage in microseconds. No wasted shots, no missed opportunities. It was like watching a computer fight, except no computer could process that much data that quickly." "What disturbs me," said Medical Officer Thindle, "is not their efficiency, but their ruthlessness. They gave the Veltar no opportunity to surrender or retreat. Even when the biological ships tried to disengage, the humans hunted them down and destroyed them. The Veltar would not have surrendered," Zexi pointed out. "They were consuming entire worlds. But how can we be certain?" The humans never even tried to communicate with them. They simply exterminated them. This was the question that had been bothering Zexi as well. The Confederacy had protocols for dealing with hostile species. First, you tried communication. Then, you attempted to understand their motivations. You looked for common ground for ways to resolve the conflict without violence. The humans had skipped all of that. They had identified a threat and eliminated it with cold efficiency. Perhaps, suggested Cultural Officer Kept, this is simply how they approach warfare. We have studied their history. They have been fighting for survival for thousands of years. They may not have the luxury of considering alternatives. Or perhaps, said quietly, they understand something about the universe that we do not. Before anyone could respond to that disturbing comment, the communications officer announced another message from Captain Chen. Admiral, we have completed our initial sweep of the surrounding systems. We have found evidence of 3 Veltar breeding colonies within 30 light-years of here. Zexi felt her heart skip a beat. Breeding colonies facilities where they reproduce and construct new swarm vessels. Each colony has the potential to create several thousand biological ships. We estimate that if left unchecked, they could generate enough forces to consume this entire sector within 2 years. The implications were staggering. The Veltar force that had nearly destroyed the Valoran fleet was just the beginning. If there were breeding colonies out there, the threat would only grow larger. What do you recommend, Captain? We eliminate the breeding colonies before they can produce more swarms. There was that word again. Eliminate. Chen spoke of destroying entire colonies as casually as most people discuss the weather. Captain, are these colonies inhabited? Are there civilian populations? Chen was quiet for a moment. Admiral, the Veltar do not distinguish between military and civilian targets. Their entire species is organized around consumption and expansion. Every individual is part of the war effort, but surely there must be non-combatants. Young ones, perhaps, or individuals who are not capable of fighting. Admiral Chen said gently, I understand your reluctance. Your people value life in all its forms, but the Veltar are not like the species you are used to dealing with. They are a biological weapon that has evolved beyond the need for individual thought or moral consideration. They exist only to consume other forms of life. How can you be certain? Because we have encountered species like them before. This was the first time Chen had mentioned humanity's previous experience with similar threats. Zexi realized that there was still so much they did not know about the humans and their history. When the Devourers of Proxima, the hive minds of the Vega system, the locust fleets of the Outer Rim. In our expansion into space, we have encountered 17 different species that operated on the same basic principle: consume everything, expand without limit, show no mercy to other forms of life. What happened to them? They no longer exist. The simple statement sent chills through everyone in the room. 17 species, all extinct, all eliminated by humanity. Admiral Chen continued, I know this is difficult for your people to understand, but sometimes the choice is simple. Either you eliminate the threat, or the threat eliminates everyone else. Zexi closed her eyes. Everything she had been taught about diplomacy and peaceful resolution seemed naive in the face of what they were dealing with. But the alternative was to allow the galaxy to continue expanding until they consumed the entire galaxy. Captain, if we allow you to eliminate these breeding colonies, will that end the threat? Based on our analysis, yes. The Veltar in this region appear to be an isolated population. If we eliminate the breeding colonies, the species will be extinct in this sector. Extinct. Another entire species would cease to exist because of human weapons. Admiral Sadar quietly. We should consider the alternatives. What alternatives? We could attempt to contain them, build barriers, establish quarantine zones, monitor their expansion. Chen's voice came through the speakers. Though her image was not on screen, she had apparently overheard the discussion. Admiral, with respect to your science officer, containment is not possible with a species like the Veltar. They adapt too quickly, reproduce too fast, and are too determined to break through any barriers you construct. The only way to stop them is to eliminate them completely. And if we refuse to authorize this action, then you will have to deal with the consequences when they return with 10 times as many ships. Zexti looked around the table at her officers. She could see the same struggle in their faces that she felt in her own hearts. Everything in their nature rebelled against the idea of genocide, but everything in their training told them that the humans were right. Captain, she said finally. Proceed with the elimination of the breeding colonies. Understood, Admiral. We will begin immediately. Over the next 18 hours, Zeth received regular reports from the human ship. Each report was brief and clinical, describing the destruction of Veltar facilities with the same matter-of-fact tone that might be used to discuss routine maintenance. First breeding colony eliminated. No survivors. Facility completely sterilized. Second breeding. Colony eliminated. Genetic material destroyed. Area clear of biological contamination. Third breeding. Colony eliminated. Threat assessment complete. Veltar species extinct in this sector. When it was over, Captain Chen requested one final meeting with the Valoran leadership. This time, she came aboard the Harmony of Stars, accompanied by Commander Rodriguez and 2 other human officers. Zayati met them in the main conference room, along with representatives from 6 other Confederacy worlds. Everyone wanted to hear what the humans had to say. Captain Chen, Zexathi began, on behalf of the Valorian Confederacy and all member worlds, I want to thank you for your intervention. Without your help, billions of innocent people would have died. Chen nodded. Admiral, my people were honored to help, but I want to make sure you understand what has happened here. What do you mean? For the past 400 years, your people have lived in a peaceful galaxy because you were fortunate enough to never encounter a species like the Veltar. But that peace was always fragile. It existed only because the truly dangerous predators had not yet found you. Chen gestured to a star chart that appeared on the main display. The galaxy is a big place, Admiral. There are species out there that make the Veltar look like harmless scavengers. Machine intelligences that consume entire systems to build more of themselves. Energy beings that feed on the life force of entire planets. Hive minds that can assimilate other species and turn them into extensions of their own consciousness. The room was completely silent. Your ships, your weapons, your tactics, they are all designed for fighting civilized opponents. Species that think like you do, that value life like you do, that can be reasoned with. But the universe is not filled with civilized species. It is filled with predators, and the only reason they have not found you yet is luck. And now, asked Ambassador Cattell of the Kalari. Now you have 2 choices, Chen replied. You can continue as you have been, hoping that your luck holds out, or you can accept that the galaxy is a dangerous place and prepare accordingly. What would that preparation involve? Asked Zay. Learning to fight like we do, building ships like ours, training your people to do what needs to be done, even when it goes against every instinct you have. You mean learning to commit genocide? Said Medical Officer Thindal bluntly. Chen turned to look at the Valorian medical officer. I mean learning to survive. Doctor, what do you call it when a body's immune system destroys a cancer? Is that murder, or is it necessary for the survival of the organism? That is different. Cancer is not a sentient species, is it? How do you define sentience, Doctor? The Veltar had intelligence, communication, social organization. They built tools and vehicles. They had goals and strategies. But they also existed only to consume other forms of life. At what point does intelligence become irrelevant compared to behavior? Thindal had no answer for that. Captain said, Zex Tai, are you saying that we should become like you? That we should abandon our principles and become predators ourselves? No, Admiral. I am saying that you should remain exactly what you are, a peaceful, civilized people who value life and seek diplomatic solutions. But you should also understand that there are threats in this universe that cannot be negotiated with, cannot be reasoned with, and cannot be allowed to exist alongside civilized species. Chen stood up, indicating that the meeting was coming to an end. My people will remain in this sector for now. If you encounter other threats that you cannot handle, we will help. But Admiral, I want you to remember something important. What is that, Captain? The next time someone like the Ye Veltar appears, we might not be here to help. Your people need to decide whether they are going to learn to protect themselves or whether they are going to remain dependent on others to do the necessary killing for them. As the human delegation prepared to leave, Admiral Zuthi had one final question. Captain, how do you live with it? How do you make peace with the things you have to do? Chen stopped at the doorway and turned back. Admiral, we sleep well at night because we know that somewhere in the galaxy there are peaceful people building beautiful things, creating art, raising children, and exploring the wonders of the universe. And we know that those people can do those things safely because we are willing to stand between them and the darkness. After the humans left, the conference room remained silent for a long time. Finally, Zexthai spoke. Comments. "They are right," said Veltar quietly. "Much as I hate to admit it, they are right. We have been living in a bubble of safety that we mistook for the natural order of things. So, what do we do?" asked Ambassador Cattell. Zexathi looked out the window at the human ship floating in the distance, the massive, ugly, terrifying vessel that had just saved their entire civilization. "We learn," she said. "We adapt, and we pray that we never have to become what they are, even though we might not have a choice." 6 months had passed since the destruction of the Veltar swarm. 6 months since the galaxy learned what humanity was truly capable of. The changes that followed were profound and irreversible. Admiral Zexathi stood in her new office aboard Nexus Station, looking out at the collection of ships docked nearby. The station had been expanded 3 times to accommodate the flood of visitors who came to study human technology and tactics. Representatives from 47 different species had requested meetings with Captain Chen. Military advisors, scientists, diplomats, and philosophers all wanted to understand the humans and their approach to warfare. But it was not just curiosity that brought them. It was fear. "Admiral," said her aide, a young Valoran officer named Sexalon, "the morning briefing is ready." Zexathi nodded and made her way to the conference room. The daily intelligence briefings had become much more complex since the incident. Before they had focused on trade disputes and minor territorial disagreements. Now they tracked military buildups, analyzed new weapon developments, and monitored the movements of potentially hostile species. The galaxy had become a more dangerous place, not because of humanity, but because humanity's presence had revealed how dangerous it had always been. "Report," she said as she took her seat. Intelligence Officer Moran activated the holographic display showing a map of local space. Red markers indicated areas of concern. "Admiral, we have 3 significant developments to report. First, the Theon Empire has begun construction of 12 new battleships based on human design principles. They are calling them Guardian-class vessels." Zexthi was not surprised. The Theons had been the first to understand the implications of what they had witnessed. Within days of the Veltar incident, they had requested detailed technical specifications for human weapon systems. Second, long-range sensors have detected unusual activity in the real sector. Ships of unknown design are gathering near the edge of explored space. Early analysis suggests they may be scouts for a larger force. How large? Unknown. But the energy signatures are consistent with the devourers that Captain Chen mentioned in her briefings. Zexi felt her heart skip a beat. The devourers were one of the extinct species that humanity had eliminated during their expansion into space. If similar creatures existed elsewhere in the galaxy. Third, the Kalari Collective has formally requested that the UES Righteous Fury be stationed permanently in their space. They are offering significant territorial and trade concessions in exchange for protection. This was the most troubling development of all. The peaceful diplomatic Kari were so frightened by the possibility of facing another threat like the Veltar that they were willing to surrender their independence to ensure their safety. What was Captain Chen's response? She declined the offer. She said that humanity would not become the galaxy's police force, but would continue to respond to existential threats as they arise. Zexathi could understand both sides of the issue. The smaller species wanted the security that human protection could provide, but Captain Chen was right to refuse. If humanity accepted responsibility for protecting everyone, they would eventually be seen as conquerors rather than allies. "Any word from Earth about additional ships?" "Yes, Admiral. The human government has agreed to station 2 more Titan-class vessels in this sector. The UE's Indomitable and the UES Retribution will arrive within the month. 3 human warships, enough firepower to destroy entire fleets, deployed to a region of space that had known only peace for 4 centuries. The irony was not lost on Zexathi. After the briefing, she made her way to the human section of the station. Captain Chen had established a small command center there, staffed by a rotating crew of human officers. It served as both a liaison office and a warning to anyone who might be considering aggressive action. She found Captain Chen in the tactical analysis room, studying reports from the outer rim. The human captain looked tired. The past 6 months had been difficult for her as well. Admiral Chen said, looking up from her displays. I was hoping to speak with you. What about, Captain? The situation in the real sector. We need to discuss our response options. Chen activated a holographic display showing the edge of explored space. Dozens of red markers indicated the positions of unknown vessels. Our long-range sensors have confirmed what your people suspected. There is a large force gathering out there. Based on their energy signatures and movement patterns, they appear to be similar to the devourers we encountered in the Proxima system 50 years ago. How similar? Identical as far as we can tell. Same biomechanical design philosophy, same consumption-based reproduction cycle, same complete disregard for other forms of life. Zexi studied the display. There were more red markers than she could count. How many ships? Conservative estimate, 5,000, possibly more. 5,000. The Veltar swarm had numbered barely over 1,000, and it had nearly destroyed the Valoran fleet. 5,000 devourer ships would be unstoppable by conventional means. Captain, are 3 human ships enough to handle a threat of that magnitude? Chen was quiet for a long moment. Honestly, I do not know. The devourers are more advanced than the Veltar. They learn from each engagement, adapting their tactics and technology. If we face them with only 3 ships, we might win, but the cost would be enormous. What do you recommend? That depends on what the Confederacy is willing to do. Chen switched the display to show the current military assets of the major Confederacy worlds. The numbers were not encouraging. Even with the recent military buildups, the combined fleets of all member species would not be enough to face 5,000 devourer ships. Captain, are you suggesting that we call for more human ships? That is one option. But Admiral, there is something you need to understand about my people. We cannot deploy our entire fleet to protect other species. We have our own worlds to defend, our own threats to face. We can help, but we cannot fight your battles for you. Zexi had been expecting this conversation for months. The human military was impressive, but it was not infinite. If the galaxy was going to survive in this new, more dangerous environment, the other species would have to learn to defend themselves. What would that require? A fundamental change in how your people approach warfare. Your ships, your weapons, your training. Everything would have to be redesigned from the ground up. Chen pulled up technical specifications for human weapon systems. Your energy weapons are designed for precision and efficiency. Ours are designed for maximum damage. Your armor is optimized for protection against similar threats. Ours is built to withstand weapons that can crack planets. Your tactics assume rational opponents who will retreat when faced with superior force. Ours assume enemies that will fight to the death, no matter what. You are talking about changing our entire civilization. I am talking about giving your civilization the tools it needs to survive. Before Zexi could respond, an alarm sounded throughout the station. Emergency lights began flashing, and the voice of the duty officer came over the communication system. All senior personnel to the command center immediately. We have a priority 1 alert. They rushed to the command center where they found chaos. Officers from multiple species were shouting reports and updating displays. The main screen showed long-range sensor data from the outer rim. Report, Zexi ordered. Admiral said, the duty officer. The unknown force in the real sector is on the move. They are heading directly for Confederacy space. Chen moved to a tactical station and began analyzing the data. Admiral, based on their current course and speed, they will reach the outer colonies in 72 hours. The same timeline as the Veltar, Zexi observed. It is not a coincidence. Both species follow the same basic strategy. Fast advance, overwhelming force, complete consumption of target worlds. Can we evacuate the colonies? Some of them. But Admiral, if we retreat now, we will just be giving them more worlds to consume and grow stronger. The Devourers use organic matter to build more ships. Every world they take makes them more dangerous. Zexi turned to the communication station. Get me fleet command. Emergency priority. Within minutes, she was speaking with Admiral Teth, the overall commander of Confederacy military forces. Admiral Teth said, I have been monitoring the situation. What are your recommendations? Sir, we need to make a decision. Either we stand and fight with what we have, or we call for additional human support. What would additional human support require? Captain Chen stepped into view of the communication pickup. Admiral Teth, this is Captain Chen. If you want us to deploy additional ships to this sector, my government will require formal mutual defense agreements with all Confederacy worlds. What kind of agreements? Military integration, standardized equipment and training, unified command structure. Your fleets would essentially become part of the human defense network. The implications were staggering. The Confederacy would maintain political independence, but militarily, they would become clients of humanity. And if we refuse, asked Admiral Teeth, then you face the Devourers with what you have. Z could see the struggle in Teeth's expression. The proud military commander was being asked to surrender the independence of his forces to an alien species, but the alternative was the likely destruction of their civilization. How long do we have to decide? Based on enemy movement, about 6 hours, Chen replied. After that, it will be too late to request additional ships from Earth. The next 6 hours were the longest in Zexti's memory. Emergency sessions were held on every Confederacy world. Military leaders, political representatives, and civilian populations all debated the same impossible choice: maintain independence and probably die, or surrender military autonomy and probably live. The vote, when it came, was closer than anyone had expected. 47 worlds voted to accept human protection. 12 voted to face the Devourers independently. 3 abstained. Admiral Teeth's image appeared on the main screen at exactly the 6-hour deadline. Captain Chen, the Confederacy Council has voted to accept your terms. We formally request additional human military support and agree to the required integration measures. Chen nodded. Understood, Admiral. I will relay your decision to Earth immediately. She turned to her communication officer. Send the signal. Full deployment authorization. Yes, ma'am. Signal sent. Over the next 24 hours, the space around Nexus Station was transformed. 12 additional human warships arrived. Each one as massive and intimidating as the Righteous Fury. Along with them came support vessels, supply ships, and most importantly, military advisors. The human advisors immediately began working with Confederacy military personnel, analyzing their ships, weapons, and tactics. The assessment was brutal, but honest. Your ships are beautiful, said Commander Williams, the human tactical advisor assigned to the Valoran fleet. But they are not designed for the kind of war you are about to fight. We can make some modifications, but fundamentally, you are going to have to build new vessels. How long would that take? Asked Zexi. Years. But Admiral, we do not have years. The Devourers will be here in 48 hours. The solution, when it came, was typically human in its directness. Rather than trying to quickly modify existing ships, the humans provided additional weapons that could be mounted on Confederacy vessels, plasma cannons, missile systems, and defensive arrays that would turn elegant explorer ships into functional warships. It will not make them as effective as human vessels, Commander Williams explained, but it will give them a chance. The final battle preparations took place under the shadow of the approaching Devourer fleet. Long-range sensors showed a massive force of biomechanical ships advancing steadily toward Confederacy space. Their energy signatures were terrifying, but their formation was different from the chaotic swarm tactics used by the Veltar. They are more organized, Captain Chen observed. This is going to be much more difficult. Admiral Zeth Tai found herself in the strange position of commanding a combined fleet that included both human warships and modified Confederacy vessels. The human ships formed the core of the battle line, while the Confederacy ships provided support and screening. All ships, this is Admiral Zadi, she announced over the fleet communication system. In a few hours, we will face an enemy unlike anything our civilizations have encountered before. They cannot be reasoned with. They cannot be deterred. They exist only to consume everything we hold dear. She paused, looking around the bridge at the mixed crew of humans and aliens working together. But we are not the same people who faced the 6 months ago. We have learned, we have adapted, and we have allies who understand what it takes to survive in a dangerous universe. The first Devourer ships appeared on long-range sensors 3 hours later. What followed was not a battle, but a war. The Devourers fought with intelligence and adaptation that made the Veltar look primitive. They learned from each engagement, modified their tactics, and developed countermeasures for human weapons in real time. But they had made one crucial mistake. They had given the galaxy time to prepare, time to learn, time to become something more than it had been. The battle lasted 18 hours. When it was over, the Devourer fleet had been destroyed, but at enormous cost. 3 human ships had been lost, along with 47 Confederacy vessels. Thousands of people had died defending their homes, but they had won. More importantly, they had won together. In the aftermath, as rescue ships searched for survivors and repair crews worked to fix damaged vessels, Admiral Zathai stood on the bridge of her flagship and looked out at the combined human Confederacy fleet. Captain Chen's voice came over the communication system. "Admiral, this is Captain Chen. Congratulations. Your people fought well." "Thank you, Captain. But this victory belongs to all of us." "Yes," Chen agreed. "It does, Admiral. I think the galaxy just learned something important." "What is that?" "That peace is not the absence of conflict. Peace is the willingness to fight for the things you believe in. Peace is the strength to protect those who cannot protect themselves. And sometimes, peace requires people to do terrible things so that others can sleep safely." Zexthi thought about that as she watched the rescue operations continue. The galaxy had changed forever in the past 6 months. It had become more dangerous, but also stronger. The peaceful species had learned that they could fight when they had to. The humans had learned that they did not have to bear the burden of galactic security alone. "Captain," she said, "what happens now?" "Now we build something new," Chen replied. "A galaxy where peaceful people can remain peaceful because they are strong enough to defend their peace. A galaxy where threats, like the Veltar and the Devourers, are met with overwhelming force before they can grow into existential dangers and humanity. What is your role in this new galaxy?" Chen was quiet for a long moment. "We are the Guardians, Admiral. Not the rulers, not the conquerors, but the Guardians. We stand watch in the dark places so that others can build beautiful things in the